The Galactic Compliance Commission's message burned itself into every screen across Earth's surface, its holographic seal spinning with smug authority as the words dissolve civilizations. Humanity is hereby classified as non-compliant with Galactic Standard 7749b, acceptable technological development trajectories. Your species has achieved interstellar capability through methods deemed unorthodox. Compliance deadline, 72 standard hours. Admiral Kestrel Vance crushed the carbon fiber stylus in her grip as she read the subtext scrolling. Beneath the formal declaration, forced relocation, technological regression, supervised evolution under the Rex hegemony's guidance. They want you is to forget how to make fire, muttered Dr. Lysander Cray from across the war room table, his weathered hands shaking as he set down his coffee. The physicist who cracked the quantum foam drive looked older than his 60 years, gray stubble, unable to hide the rage burning in his eyes. 23 billion people. They want to make us pets. The room fell silent except for the hum of Earth's orbital defense grid, cycling through its targeting sequences 12,000 kilometers above their heads. Through the reinforced windows of Luna Command, Earth hung like a blue marble wrapped in the silver threads of humanity's greatest achievement to defense network that had taken 3 generations to complete. Commander Idris Blackheath cleared his throat, his prosthetic arm clicking softly as servos adjusted tension. Ma'am, the hegemony fleet just translated into the outer system. 300 vessels. They're broadcasting compliance enforcement protocols. Vance's jaw tightened. She'd studied every recording of Rex military doctrine available, watched their compliance actions reduce proud civilizations to historical footnotes. The Kaelari had been artists and philosophers. The Threx had built cities that sang with mathematical precision. All of them now lived in reservation worlds, their children learning to weave baskets instead of reaching for stars. How long until they reach Earth? She asked. 18 hours at current approach velocity, Blackheath replied. They're not trying to hide their intentions. Full military formation, weapons hot. Dr. Cray laughed, a bitter sound that echoed off the titanium walls. Of course they're not hiding. Why would they? We're just primitives who got lucky with some exotic physics. They probably think this is routine. Vance stood, her reflection multiplying in the polished surfaces around her. At 45, she'd seen humanity's first tentative steps beyond. Soul, watched colonies bloom on distant worlds. Witnessed the moment when Earth's children learned they weren't alone in the universe. She'd also seen the surveillance drones that followed their expansion, the bureaucratic harassment that followed every human achievement, the growing pressure to conform to someone else's vision of acceptable progress. They're right about one thing, she said quietly. We are primitives. We barely figured out how to stop killing each other over resources. We still argue about whose imaginary friend is better. Half our colonies run on spite and the other half on coffee. She turned to face the assembled officers, representatives from every nation and colony that comprised the Terran Federation. But they made one critical error in their assessment. General Amara Cortez leaned forward, her cybernetic eye focusing with the software. Ma'am, they assumed being primitive was a weakness. Vance's smile was sharp enough to cut diamond. Signal, all fleet commanders, implement Protocol Lazarus, and give me a direct line to every human settlement from here to Proxima Centauri, Admiral. Dr. Cray said slowly, Protocol Lazarus was theoretical. We've never tested it at full scale. Then I guess we're about to find out if human stubbornness extends to quantum mechanics. Vance activated her command interface, watching the status lights shifted from amber to red across Earth's defense grid. They want compliance? Let's show them what non-compliance looks like when it's backed by 3 billion years of evolutionary spite. Outside, the stars wheeled in their courses, indifferent to the drama about to unfold. But in the spaces between those stars, something stirred a network of quantum-entangled particles seeded throughout human space. Over decades of seemingly routine exploration, humanity had always been good at preparation, even when they didn't quite know what they were preparing for. The Rex hegemony had conquered 17 species over the past millennium. They had protocols, procedures, and an unshakable faith in their own superiority. They had never encountered humans before. The first shots came at 0347 Terra Standard Time, when 3 Rex interceptors broke formation to investigate a human mining platform at the system's edge. Captain Elena Vasquez watched the alien ships approach her station through the main viewport, their hull configurations as beautiful as they were threatening. organic curves that seemed grown rather than built, weapon ports that opened like blooming flowers. The Vrex had turned destruction into an art form. "Captain," her communications officer called out, "they're demanding immediate surrender of all personnel." For compliance evaluation, Vasquez touched the quantum transmitter implanted behind her ear, feeling the slight tingle that meant Luna Command was listening. "Tell them we'll comply as soon as they demonstrate their commitment to peaceful resolution by powering down their weapons." The response came in the form of a particle beam that carved through the mining platform's outer hull like a blowtorch. Through tissue paper, alarm screamed as atmosphere vented into space. An emergency bulkhead slammed shut with the finality of coffin lids. "All hands, this is the captain," Vasquez announced over the ship-wide comm. "Implement Emergency Protocol 7. This is not a drill." What happened next would be debated in xenological circles for decades, assuming any xenologists survived to debate it. The mining platform's fusion reactors didn't just overload. They synchronized their magnetic containment fields in a pattern that turned 3 square kilometers of space into a brief, brilliant star. The explosion consumed the platform, the Vrex interceptors, and any illusions about humanity's willingness to fight cleanly. Admiral Vance felt the quantum ripple through her implant as the mining platform's sacrifice painted itself across her awareness. 237 humans dead in the first exchange. The Vrex casualties remained unknown, but their formation wavered as alien commanders tried to process what they just witnessed. "That was just the opening note," she murmured, then raised her voice to fill Luna Command's operations center. "All stations, begin Phase 1 of Protocol Lazarus. Time to show our guests how we welcome visitors across human space." Every colony, mining station, and deep space outpost began to move, not toward safety, toward the enemy. Civilian freighters jettisoned their cargo and revealed concealed weapon systems. Scientific research vessels deployed sensor arrays that had been camouflaged as telescopes. Even the traffic control satellites orbiting Earth's colonies suddenly sprouted missile launchers and particle cannons. The Vrex Hegemony's intelligence services had spent decades cataloging human military assets. They had identified Earth's orbital defense platforms, mapped the locations of major fleet bases, calculated the exact number of warships in active service. They had missed the forest for the trees. Commander Blackheath's fingers danced across his tactical display as reports flooded in from across the system. "Admiral, we have positive confirmation on all sleeper units. The Hegemony's tracking algorithms never caught onto our distributed defense strategy." "Why would they?" General Cortez asked, her artificial eye tracking dozens of tactical displays simultaneously. "They think in terms of central authority, official military structures. They couldn't conceive of a species that would arm their garbage collectors." On the main display, the Vrex fleet continued its stately approach toward Earth, but their formation was beginning to fragment as captains responded to the swarm of previously unknown contacts appearing on their sensors. What had looked like a routine compliance action was rapidly becoming something else entirely. Dr. Cray studied the quantum resonance patterns flowing through his instruments. The entanglement network is holding steady at 97% synchronization. "We're getting real-time tactical data from every human settlement in the system." "Excellent." Vance activated her command interface again, watching as the true scope of humanity's preparations revealed itself. "Signal all units, weapons free. Show them what happens when you threaten a species that figured out how to split atoms before it figured out how to get along." The battle for Earth's independence began with a single mining platform, turning itself into a nuclear furnace. It escalated when 17 unarmed colony ships revealed themselves to be missile frigates with delusions of adequacy. It reached full intensity when Earth's garbage collectors opened fire with weapons that violated 6 different galactic treaties on acceptable force multipliers. The Vrex had protocols for conventional warfare, experience with asymmetric tactics, and sophisticated countermeasures for most known military technologies. They had no protocols for facing an entire species that had spent 3 generations turning every piece of civilian infrastructure into a potential weapon of war. As the first Vrex destroyer died under concentrated fire from what its sensors insisted were traffic control satellites, Admiral Vance allowed herself a small smile. The Hegemony wanted to see how primitives fought. They were about to get a comprehensive demonstration. The Vrex learned quickly, too quickly. Within 6 hours of the first engagement, their formation had adapted to humanity's distributed defense strategy. Hegemony warships now moved in tight clusters, overlapping their point defense systems to create protective bubbles of interceptor fire. Their commanders had identified the quantum communication nodes linking human forces and begun systematically jamming them. Admiral Vance watched her tactical display fragment as contact after contact went dark. The beautiful symphony of coordinated resistance was degenerating into isolated fights, as individual stations found themselves cut off from the network. Asteroid Mining Station Delta 7 just went dark, Commander BlackHFY reported, his voice tight with professional control. That's the third one in the last hour. They're being methodical about it. Casualties? Vance asked, though she already knew the answer would be devastating. Total loss, 1,500 personnel. BlackHFY's prosthetic arm clenched involuntarily. The Vrex aren't taking prisoners, Admiral. They're sterilizing every position before moving on. General Cortez slammed her fist on the tactical table, causing holographic displays to flicker. Bastards are learning from our own tactics. Every time we reveal a hidden weapon system, they adapt their countermeasures and share the data across their entire fleet. Dr. Cray looked up from his quantum resonance array, sweat beading on his forehead despite the command center's climate control. The entanglement network wasn't designed for this level of interference. The Vrex jamming systems are more sophisticated than we anticipated. We're losing synchronization across multiple nodes. On the main display, Earth hung serenely in space, while humanity's children died in the darkness beyond. The orbital defense platforms were still online, their massive particle cannons tracking the approaching enemy fleet, but Vance knew they wouldn't be enough, not against 300 hegemony warships with centuries of combat experience. Admiral, a new voice called out from the communication station. Lieutenant Zara Okafor's hand shook as she processed an incoming transmission. We're receiving a priority message from the hegemony fleet commander. They're offering terms. The holographic display shimmered, resolving into the image of a Vrex commander whose chitinous carapace bore the scars of a dozen campaigns. When it spoke, its voice carried the authority of absolute conviction, primitive species designation. Humanity, it said, mandibles clicking with what might have been amusement. Your resistance has exceeded projections by a factor of 7. Impressive. However, analysis of your defensive capabilities indicates inevitable defeat within 18 standard hours. We offer one final opportunity for compliance. The aliens. Image leaned forward, compound eyes reflecting the light of distant stars. Surrender your military assets and submit to technological regression. Your species will be relocated to suitable worlds under hegemony supervision. Refuse, and we will implement total sterilization protocol. Every human world will be reduced to component atoms. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in silence except for the soft hum of machinery and the distant rumble of Earth's rotating habitat rings. They're not bluffing, Dr. Cray said quietly. I'm detecting energy buildups in their heavy cruisers. Whatever total sterilization protocol means, they have the firepower to back it up. Vance stared at Earth's image on the main display, thinking of the 23 billion people who called it home. Children playing in orbital parks. Scientists pushing the boundaries of knowledge in research stations scattered across the system. Artists and musicians and poets who would never have the chance to create if humanity bowed to alien demands. How long until they reach Earth's orbital perimeter? She asked. 12 hours at current velocity. BlackHFY replied. The defense platforms will engage them at maximum range. But Admiral, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. There is another option, Dr. Cray said slowly, his words carrying the weight of terrible possibility. Protocol Lazarus has a final phase. We've never tested it, never even run full simulations. But the theoretical framework is sound. Explain, Vance ordered, though part of her already suspected what he was going to say. The quantum entanglement network wasn't just designed for communication. Every human settlement, every ship, every station has been seeded with quantum-paired particles. If we synchronize the resonance frequencies across the entire network, Cray paused, swallowing hard, we could create a standing wave pattern that turns every piece of human technology into a weapon. What kind of weapon? General Cortez asked. The kind that makes stellar engineering look conservative, Cray replied. We're talking about converting the entire quantum substrate of human space into a destructive interference pattern. It would be like turning the laws of physics into artillery. Vance closed her eyes, feeling the weight of species survival pressing down on her shoulders. Casualties? Unknown. Probably significant. The process would destabilize every quantum system in the network, including life support, artificial gravity, even basic electronics. Any human installation that couldn't maintain itself with purely mechanical systems would. Cray spread his hands helplessly, would die. Vance finished. How many people are we talking about, Doctor? Conservative estimate. 40% of humanity's off-world population, maybe more. The command center fell silent again. Outside, the stars burned with their ancient light, indifferent to the calculations of genocide playing out in the minds of mortals and the Rex fleet. Vance asked. Cray's smile was sharp and terrible. Would cease to exist in any meaningful sense. Admiral Vance opened her eyes and looked around the command center, meeting the gaze of every officer present. These were the people who would carry the weight of this decision for the rest of their lives. Signal all human colonies, she said. Finally, full evacuation to designated bunker sites. Anyone who can't make it to mechanical life support in the next 6 hours. She paused, the words catching in her throat. Make sure they understand what we're about to do and why. The orders went out on quantum channels that would soon carry death instead of words. Across human space, millions of people began what might be their final journey not toward safety, but toward the chance to die free. The evacuation was chaos, wrapped in procedure, terror disguised as efficiency. On Mars colony, Director Hassan Kamal watched 10,000 colonists stream toward the emergency shelter's vast underground chambers carved from living rock, equipped with mechanical life support systems that could function without quantum-assisted technology. The older colonists moved with grim determination, having lived through enough disasters to understand survival priorities. The children asked questions their parents couldn't answer. Daddy, why can't we take Mr. Buttons? 6-year-old Anya Volkov asked, clutching her quantum interactive pet as her father carried her toward Shelter Complex 7. Dmitry Volkov's throat tightened as he gently removed the toy from his daughter's grip, knowing it would dissolve into quantum static when the network activated. Mr. Buttons has to help the grown-ups with something important. Little star. He'll see you when it's over. Similar scenes played out across human space. On Europa Station, marine biologist Dr. Rachel Kim made the hardest decision of her career, flooding her laboratory's quantum-enhanced research specimens with neural suppressors before sealing them in cryogenic storage. 30 years of work on quantum consciousness interfaces, reduced to frozen tissue samples that might survive what was coming in the asteroid belt. Miners cursed as they abandoned quantum-assisted extraction equipment that represented generational investments. On the generation ship New Horizon, Captain Torres gave the order to jettison half their navigation systems and revert to pre-quantum stellar positioning, a decision that would add decades to their journey to Kepler for to be. Admiral Vance monitored the evacuation through quantum feeds that would soon carry death instead of data. The numbers were stark. 67% of off-world colonists had reached emergency shelters. The remaining 33% were either too far from safe zones or had made the conscious choice to remain at their posts. Dr. Cray's voice cut through the command center's controlled chaos. Admiral, we're receiving final reports from the network nodes. Quantum resonance is holding at 94% synchronization across all human settlements. Time to hegemony weapons range, she asked. Commander Blackheath consulted his tactical display. 7 hours until they can engage Earth's orbital defenses. They're maintaining formation integrity despite our harassment attacks. Those harassment attacks had cost the Rex 12 ships over the past 6 hours. While humanity's losses were mounting faster, every revealed weapon system was cataloged, countered, and destroyed with mechanical efficiency. The hegemony had turned asteroid mining stations into vapor, reduced defensive platforms to expanding clouds of superheated plasma, and methodically eliminated every human asset that dared reveal itself. We're down to 17% of our mobile assets, General Cortez reported, her cybernetic eye flickering as a process casualty reports. The wrecks are good, Admiral. Better than we hoped, worse than we feared. Lieutenant Okafor looked up from her communications console, face pale. Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission from the hegemony commander. They're broadcasting footage from our colonies. The main display shimmered, revealing images that would haunt human nightmares for generations. Rex boarding parties had infiltrated 3 outer system colonies, capturing civilians who hadn't made it to the emergency shelters. The aliens weren't torturing their prisoners. They were studying them, taking biological samples, conducting what appeared to be compliance. Compatibility assessments. They're planning to keep some of us, Dr. Cray said quietly, breeding stock, living exhibits. The galaxy's newest pet species, the hegemony commander's image replaced the colony footage, its compound eyes reflecting the cold light of distant suns. Primitive designation humanity. Your evacuation protocols have been observed and cataloged. Impressive survival instincts. However, analysis indicates you are preparing for mass suicide rather than acceptance of hegemony guidance. The alien's mandibles clicked with what might have been disappointment. This is wasteful. Your species shows potential for useful development under proper supervision. We offer final terms. Surrender now, and 50% of your population will be preserved in suitable habitats. Continue resistance, and total sterilization protocol will be implemented upon arrival at your primary world. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in silence. They're 5 hours out, Black reported. Long-range sensors show energy buildups in their heavy cruisers, whatever they're planning to do to Earth. They're getting ready to do it. Vance activated her personal communicator, opening a channel to every human settlement in the system. When she spoke, her voice carried across millions of kilometers to reach the ears of people huddled in emergency shelters, waiting for death or freedom. Citizens of humanity, she began. You've all seen the hegemony's terms. They offer us survival as pets, existence as curiosities in their cosmic zoo. They promise to preserve half our population as breeding stock for future generations, who will never know the stars as we have known them. She paused, looking out at Earth's blue marble hanging in space. We have another option. It will cost us dearly, more dearly than any price we've ever paid, but it will ensure that humanity dies free, rather than living enslaved. The quantum network hummed with acknowledgments from across human space. Colonies voting, stations reporting, ships confirming. The response was not unanimous, it never could be, for a decision this terrible, but it was decisive. Dr. Cray, Vance said formally, initiate phase 4 of Protocol Lazarus. All quantum nodes to maximum resonance. Prepare to turn our entire civilization into a weapon. Cray's hands trembled as he input the activation codes, watching as quantum energy levels spiked across every human installation in the system. The entanglement network that had taken 3 generations to build began to transform itself into something unprecedented in galactic history, a distributed weapon system powered by the quantum foundations of reality itself, resonance building to critical levels. He reported, we have approximately 40 minutes before the standing wave becomes irreversible. Then we'd better make them count, Vance replied, turning to face her tactical officers. Signal the fleet. All remaining assets are to engage the enemy at maximum range. We're not trying to win anymore, we're trying to position them for the kill. The final phase of humanity's war for independence had begun. In 40 minutes, every human installation in the system would become a quantum resonance weapon capable of tearing holes in space-time itself. The question was no longer whether humanity could defeat the Vrex hegemony. The question was whether anyone would survive to celebrate the victory. The quantum resonance reached critical threshold at 073 for Terra's Standard Time, just as the Vrex fleet crossed into Earth's outer defensive perimeter. Admiral Vance felt the moment when every human installation in the system became a weapon of sudden electric certainty that coursed through her quantum implant and settled in her bones like the promise of thunder around her. The command center's displays flickered as systems strained to process the new reality of space-time itself. All nodes report critical resonance achieved, Dr. Cray announced, his voice tight with anticipation and terror. The standing wave is stable across the entire network. We have approximately 12 minutes before quantum cascade becomes irreversible. On the tactical display, the Vrex fleet spread across space like a disease, their 300 ships maintaining perfect formation despite the swarm of human defenders harassing their flanks. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never encountered prey that fought back with genuine viciousness. They were about to learn why that confidence was misplaced. Signal all defensive platforms, Vance ordered. Maximum rate of fire. I want every particle cannon, every missile battery, every jury-rigged mining laser throwing everything it has at the enemy fleet. Earth's orbital defenses erupted and synchronized. Fury, particle beams invisible to the naked eye lance across space, their passage marked only by the brilliant explosions they carved from Vrex's hull armor. Missile swarms painted themselves across the darkness in trails of nuclear fire, each warhead carrying enough explosive power to level a city. The hegemony formation shuddered under the assault, but maintained cohesion. Their point defense systems intercepted most of the incoming missiles, while their energy shields absorbed particle beam impacts with casual efficiency. The return fire was immediate and devastating. Vrex plasma cannons spoke with voices of molten starlight, each shot precise enough to core an orbital platform from 15,000 kilometers away. Defense platform Epsilon died first, its fusion reactors breaching in a fireball that briefly outshone Earth's sun. Platform Delta followed. Seconds later, its crew of 400 vaporized in the moment between alarm and annihilation. "We've lost 6 platforms in the first exchange," Commander BlackHFY reported, his voice steady despite the catastrophe unfolding around them. "Enemy formation is advancing at full military power. Their shields are holding against everything we can throw at them." General Cortez cursed in 3 languages as her tactical displays updated with casualty reports. "They're not even slowing down. Our weapons are like throwing rocks at a hurricane," but the rocks were still flying across the system. Every surviving human installation added its voice to the desperate chorus of resistance. The asteroid mining station Asgard managed to ram-scoop enough debris to accelerate it to 15% of light speed before launching it at the Vrex fleet's flank, an improvised railgun round that punched clean through the destroyers before dissipating in the void. The generation ship Magellan's Dream jettisoned its remaining fusion fuel in a coordinated pattern, then detonated the cloud with synchronized laser bursts. The resulting explosion consumed a Vrex heavy cruiser and damaged 3 escorts, but cost humanity 12,000 colonists, who had been manning the ship's quantum-assisted life support systems. On Mars, Director Kamal watched his colony's orbital factories transform themselves into kinetic bombardment platforms, hurling million-ton habitat modules at the enemy with magnetic catapults that had been disguised as cargo launchers. Each impact carried the gravitational energy of a small asteroid, but the Vrex fleet was already adapting, their formation spreading to minimize damage from area effect weapons. "Dr. Cray," Admiral Vance said quietly, "how much longer until the quantum cascade?" 8 minutes, he replied, sweat streaming down his face as he monitored resonance levels across the network. "The standing wave is approaching critical frequency. Once it collapses, every quantum-paired particle in human space will." His words were lost in the roar of Earth's defense grid firing everything it had in one final, desperate barrage. The planet's entire arsenal: particle cannons, fusion missiles, kinetic projectiles, and exotic matter warheads painted space with the fury of 23 billion people who refused to die quietly. The Vrex fleet staggered under the concentrated fire. Their shields flickered and failed in cascading overloads. Armor plating sublimated under particle beam impacts, and 3 more destroyers died in nuclear fireballs that briefly painted the void in shades of atomic fire. But they kept coming. The hegemony's return volley was methodical and complete. Every remaining orbital platform died within 30 seconds, their destruction so synchronized it seemed choreographed. Earth's moon received 6 plasma bombardment strikes that carved craters visible from the planet's surface. The Luna Command facility shuddered as shock waves propagated through the satellite's crust. "They're targeting our population centers," Lieutenant Okafor reported, her voice breaking as she processed the targeting data. "Preliminary bombardment of major cities. They're not planning to occupy Earth, they're planning to sterilize it." Vance closed her eyes and felt the weight of 23 billion souls pressing against her consciousness. Every human who had ever looked up at the stars and dreamed of touching them. Every child who had built toy spaceships from scraps in imagination. Every explorer who had taken humanity's first steps into the cosmic dark. All of them about to die, unless she was willing to kill 40% of humanity's off-world population to save the rest. 5 minutes to quantum cascade, Dr. Cray announced. On the main display, the Vrex fleet swept through the wreckage of Earth's defenses like a plague of metal locusts. Their weapons were already charging for the final bombardment that would reduce humanity's birthworld to a cloud of radioactive dust. Vance opened her eyes and saw the future spreading before her like the branches of a tree. In one branch, humanity knelt before alien masters and forgot how to dream of stars. In another, every human in the galaxy died free but dead, their civilization a brief footnote in galactic history. And in the third branch, the one that would require her to murder millions of her own people, humanity survived and remembered all Hence, she announced over the ship-wide comm, "Prepare for quantum cascade initiation. What we're about to do will echo through history. Let's make sure it echoes loud enough for the galaxy to hear." The countdown entered its final minutes as Earth's children prepared to show the universe what happened when predators mistook persistence for weakness. 3 minutes until quantum cascade, and the Vrex fleet had reached Earth's upper atmosphere. Admiral Vance watched her homeworld's blue marble fill the tactical display. As alien ships descended like mechanical angels of death, their formation was perfect, their targeting solutions absolute, their confidence unshakable. In 90 seconds, they would begin the systematic sterilization of humanity's birth world. They had no idea what was waiting for them. "Dr. Cray," Vance said quietly, "initiate cascade sequence across human space. Every quantum-paired particle that had been seeded throughout 3 generations of exploration began to vibrate in harmonic resonance." The effect was subtle at first, a slight fluctuation in local space-time that barely registered on conventional sensors. The Vrex noticed when their shields began to destabilize. "All stations, what's your status?" The Hegemony Fleet commander demanded over alien communication channels that human quantum interceptors had been monitoring for hours. Unknown quantum interference building across all spectrum ranges came. The response from a heavy cruiser: "Recommend immediate withdrawal to safe distance for analysis." But there was no safe distance. The quantum entanglement network spanned every piece of human technology in the system, and every piece of human technology had been deliberately positioned to create a 3-dimensional interference pattern that turned local space into a weapon. The first Vrex destroyer simply ceased to exist. One moment it was descending toward Earth's surface. The next it had been reduced to its component atoms by a standing wave that convinced quantum mechanics to take a brief vacation from the laws of physics. The Hegemony Fleet commander's image appeared on every human communication channel, its compound eyes wide with something that might have been respect. "Impressive," it admitted. "Your species has weaponized the quantum substrate itself. However, this will not save you. Our fleet carries sufficient firepower to..." The transmission cut off as more destroyers vanished in sparkles of dispersed matter. The quantum cascade was accelerating, each destroyed ship adding its exotic matter to the resonance pattern, amplifying the effect beyond Dr. Cray's most optimistic projections. "Cascade frequency at 97% of critical," Cray reported, his voice tight with amazement and horror. "The network is using Vrex ship matter to enhance the standing wave. It's becoming self-sustaining. On Earth's surface, electromagnetic pulses from the quantum dissolution of alien ships painted auroras across the sky in colors that had no names. Children in the deep shelters pressed their faces to reinforced windows, watching their planet's upper atmosphere bloom with the deathlight of enemies they would never see." But the Vrex hegemony had not conquered 17 species by yielding to exotic weapons. Their fleet commander made a decision that would haunt galactic military academies for centuries to come. "All ships, maximum dispersal pattern, emergency translation to hyperspace. Sir, the quantum interference is affecting our translation drives. We cannot guarantee successful. Execute immediately." The Hegemony Fleet scattered like startled birds, each ship desperately trying to open a hyperspace portal that would carry it away from the quantum hellstorm consuming local space. Most succeeded, their exotic matter drives punching holes in reality. Just moments before the cascade wave reached them, 37 ships were not fast enough. They died in perfect silence, their destruction so complete that not even wreckage remained. The quantum cascade consumed them down to the subatomic level, adding their mass energy to the standing wave pattern that now turned Earth's entire orbital space into a weapon no species had ever seen before. Admiral Vance felt the moment when the cascade became irreversible, a sudden, terrible certainty that humanity had just crossed a line from which there could be no return. Around the solar system, every human installation that couldn't maintain life support with purely mechanical systems began to fail. The casualties came in waves of silence. Colony Alpha 7 on Titan simply stopped responding to communications, its 15,000 inhabitants dying as their quantum-assisted atmospheric processors shut down. Mining Station Kepler reported catastrophic decompression as their quantum-stabilized artificial gravity failed. Research platform Darwin managed to send one final transmission before their fusion reactors went critical. "Tell Earth we held the line. Final casualty reports coming in," Commander BlackHFY said, his voice hollow with the weight of genocide by necessity. We've lost approximately 11 million people across 47 installations. The quantum cascade effect is diminishing as it moves outward from Earth, but we killed 11 million of our own people to save the rest, Vance finished. How many wrecked ships escaped? Unknown, Admiral. Long-range sensors are still recovering from the cascade effects. We estimate between 60 and 70% of their fleet managed emergency translation to hyperspace. Dr. Cray looked up from his quantum resonance displays, his face pale with exhaustion and shock. The good news is that the cascade effect seems to be stabilizing. Earth's orbital space now has a permanent quantum interference field that will make it extremely difficult for any fleet to approach undetected. And the bad news? General Cortez asked. The interference field is permanent. We've turned our entire home system into a fortress, but it's a fortress we can never leave. Any ship trying to use quantum-assisted technology within Earth's orbital space will be torn apart by resonance effects. Vance stared at the tactical display, watching the slowly dissipating energy signatures that marked where an alien fleet had once threatened her species. Earth hung in its quantum cage, safe but isolated, protected but imprisoned. Admiral, Lieutenant Okafor said quietly, we're receiving long-range transmissions from the escaped Rex vessels. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. The holographic display flickered, resolving into the image of the Hegemony Fleet Commander. Its carapace bore new scars, and its compound eyes reflected something that might have been fear. Primitive designation humanity, it said. Your species has demonstrated capabilities that exceed all previous projections. The galactic compliance commission will be informed that your classification requires revision. The transmission paused, alien words carrying across the void like a funeral dirge for the age of human innocence. However, understand this. What you have done here today will not be ignored or forgotten. The hegemony does not tolerate defiance, regardless of its cost. We will return with appropriate countermeasures. Your isolation will not protect you forever. The transmission ended, leaving Luna Command in silence except for the soft hum of machinery and the distant rumble of Earth's rotation. Vance looked around the command center at the faces of officers who had just participated in humanity's first act of interstellar warfare. They had won. If victory could be measured in the smoking wreckage of alien ships and the quantum scars carved across space itself, but the cost, signal all remaining human installations. She ordered, begin phase 2 of our contingency protocols. If the hegemony wants to play the long game, they're about to learn why humans invented the concept of spite. Outside Luna Command's reinforced windows, Earth turned in its quantum cage. Beautiful and terrible and free, the stars beyond seemed. Different now, not destinations to be reached, but challenges to be overcome. Humanity had declared its independence from galactic civilization. Now came the hard part, surviving what that independence would cost. 5 years after the Battle of Earth, the hegemony returned. They came expecting to find a broken species. Their technology regressed, their colonies scattered, their will to resist finally broken by isolation and loss. The Vrex fleet that dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Sol System was twice the size of the original invasion for 600 ships carrying enough firepower to crack planets, and the absolute confidence that came from 5 years of preparation. They found something else entirely. Admiral Kestrel Vance, now bearing the scars of half a decade, spent turning humanity into something the galaxy had never encountered, watched the alien fleet's arrival from the bridge of the TNS. Retribution. The ship was impossible by every standard of galactic engineering, a fusion of human ingenuity and the exotic physics they learned to harness in Earth's quantum-scarred orbital space. Range to target, she asked Captain Elena Vasquez, who had survived the destruction of her mining platform, to become humanity's first commander of quantum warfare vessels. 12 light minutes in closing, Vasquez replied, her fingers dancing across control interfaces that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions the Vrex couldn't even detect. The hegemony fleet is maintaining standard approach. Formation, they don't know we're here. How could they? The Retribution and her sister ships existed in a state of quantum superposition that made them effectively invisible to conventional sensors. Humanity had spent 5 years learning to weaponize the physics that had once nearly destroyed them, turning their imprisonment into the forge where a new kind of warfare was born. Dr. Lysander Cray, his hair now completely white, but his eyes, bright with the fervor of discovery, looked up from his exotic matter displays. Quantum resonance cascade is ready for deployment. The new network has 3 times the range and 10 times the destructive potential of the original system. The cost of that advancement lay in the memorial walls that now covered 3 sides of Luna Command. 11 million names from the first battle, and another 6 million from the accidents, failures, and quantum cascade experiments that had followed. Humanity had paid for its independence in blood, but they had paid it willingly and with full knowledge of the price. Signal from Earth Defense Command. Communications Officer Idris Blackheath reported his father had died in the first battle, but the younger Blackheath had inherited both his position and his hatred of alien overlords. All planetary installations report ready for Phase 7 deployment. Phase 7. The final evolution of Protocol Lazarus turned from a desperate last resort into a systematic methodology for turning entire star systems into weapons. Humanity had been trapped in Sol for 5 years, but they had not been idle. On the main display, Earth hung in space like a blue jewel wrapped in silver threads. But now the threads were visible to the naked eye, quantum interference patterns that turned the planet's entire orbital space into a 3-dimensional targeting grid. The moon had been hollowed out and converted into a massive quantum resonance amplifier. Mars gleamed with the light of fusion forges that worked exotic matter the way Earth's ancestors had once worked bronze. The asteroid belt was gone, converted into a cloud of quantum-paired defensive platforms that could appear anywhere in the system within nanoseconds of each other. The outer planets had been transformed into massive sensor arrays that could detect approaching fleets from a dozen light years away. Humanity had taken their prison and turned it into a fortress. More than that, they had turned it into a weapon that could reach across interstellar space. Hegemony fleet has crossed the heliopause, Vasquez reported. They're beginning active sensor sweeps. Still no indication they detected our presence. Vance smiled, remembering the alien commander's promise that isolation would not protect humanity forever. The Vrex had been right about that, but they had misunderstood the nature of human adaptation. Humanity didn't hide from threats, they turned threats into tools. Dr. Cray, begin quantum resonance build-up across all network nodes. I want the entire system ready to demonstrate what 5 years of human engineering can accomplish when properly motivated. Yes, Admiral. Cray's fingers moved across his controls with the precision of a master pianist. Resonance building across 47,000 individual nodes. The Hegemony fleet is entering our engagement envelope now. The first indication the Vrex had that something was wrong came when their lead scout simply vanished. Not destroyed, vanished. Their matter converted to pure energy and added to the quantum cascade that was already building across local space. The Hegemony fleet commander's image appeared on all human communication channels. But now the aliens' confidence had been replaced by something approaching respect. Species designation humanity, your defensive capabilities have evolved since our last encounter. However, the Hegemony has also adapted. Our new shielding systems are immune to quantum cascade effects, are they? Vance asked pleasantly, opening a direct channel to the alien fleet. That's interesting. Dr. Cray, would you be so kind as to demonstrate our new toys for our guests? What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for the next 1,000 years, assuming any military academies survive to study it. The quantum cascade that erupted from Sol system didn't just affect local space. It propagated outward at faster-than-light speeds, carried by the same exotic physics that enabled interstellar travel. Every Hegemony fleet within a 12-light-year radius suddenly found their quantum-assisted systems failing. Hyperspace drives shut down, leaving ships stranded between stars. Artificial gravity fluctuated, throwing crews around like toys. Life support systems powered by exotic matter simply stopped working. But that was just the opening movement of humanity's symphony of vengeance. The second movement came when quantum-paired human ships began appearing throughout Hegemony space, their crews carrying 5 years of accumulated rage and the tools to express it properly. They struck at military installations, government facilities, and compliance enforcement centers with surgical precision and absolute ruthlessness. The third movement was the broadcast that went out on every communication frequency in the galaxy. Admiral Vance's voice carrying humanity's declaration to every species that had ever bowed to Hegemony authority. Citizens of the galaxy, she began, her words propagating across light years at faster-than-light speeds through quantum channels. Humanity had learned to weaponize for too long. You have lived under the boot of the Vrex Hegemony and their Compliance Commission. You have been told that technological development must follow approved paths, that independence is chaos, that freedom is dangerous. The transmission showed images of hegemony compliance actions, the systematic destruction of civilizations that had dared to dream beyond approved parameters, the reduction of proud species to reservation worlds, the slow strangulation of innovation. Across an entire galaxy, we are humanity, Vance continued, and we reject these limitations. We reject the idea that any species has the right to dictate the development of another. We reject the hegemony's authority, their compliance protocols, and their vision of galactic order. The final images were of Earth not as it had been, but as it had become. A world wrapped in quantum fire, defended by technologies that turned physics itself into a weapon, populated by a species that had looked into the abyss of extinction and chosen to remake themselves rather than surrender. The hegemony wanted to see what happens when primitives refuse to comply. Vance concluded, today, they learn. Any species that wishes to join humanity in rejecting galactic tyranny need only signal their intention. We will provide the tools necessary to defend yourselves. The transmission ended, but its effects rippled across the galaxy like a shockwave. Within days, 17 species had signaled their intention to join humanity's rebellion. Within weeks, hegemony installations were under attack across a dozen star systems. Within months, the galactic order that had existed for 1,000 years was crumbling under the weight of species that had finally learned they didn't have to kneel. Admiral Vance stood on Luna Command's observation deck, watching Earth turn in its cage of quantum fire. The planet was beautiful and terrible and free, defended by technologies that had cost humanity 11 million lives to develop and millions more to perfect. The hegemony would return eventually, they always did, but they would find humanity ready, backed by an alliance of species that had chosen freedom over security, growth over compliance, the uncertainty of independence over the comfort of servitude. Humanity had declared Earth non-compliant with galactic authority. The galaxy had responded with fleets and threats and promises of extinction. Humanity had answered with the silence of ships burning in quantum fire and the sound of chains breaking across 1,000 worlds. The age of compliance was over. The age of human defiance had begun. And in the depths of space, where the light of distant suns painted shadows across the hull of impossible ships, humanity's children prepared for the long war that would determine whether freedom was just another word or the foundation upon which civilizations were built. They had chosen their side in the only way that mattered, with fire, with physics turned into poetry, with the absolute refusal to kneel before anyone who demanded submission. The galaxy would never be the same, and humanity wouldn't have it any other way.